All right, welcome everybody. Next FYR University Sales Mastery Series. I'm really excited about this one. This is our leverage class. It's a three-part series, so we've got leverage 1, 2, and 3. And I'm excited to be able to take you guys through this. This is kind of a labor of love for me as far as this class. Takes a lot of years of studying and learning along the way and that kind of stuff, and putting it down into one piece that really talks about how to get more out of your business, right? And I've worked with a lot of top producing agents all over the country over the years, and the common theme from a brand new agent, they're trying to figure out how to get business, but as they start to get business, we have the feast or famine cycle in real estate. Where you work really hard to generate leads and you get business. And typically we're so busy handling the business that we don't generate more leads, and then it falls off. The deals close and then there's nothing left and we start back over again. For top producing agents, that's not their problem. They've figured out how to keep the leads coming in. They've got time on task over time. They've got, referrals starting to come in and that sort of thing. So their business starts to expand. And then typically their problem at that point is how to get quality of life back, right? That it's kind of be careful what you wish for. You pull a huge fish into the boat and then you wonder, okay, now I got it. What do I do with it? And so now they're trying to figure out, how do I get quality of life back? How do I get control to my life without decreasing my income? And on both ends of that spectrum, the answer is leverage. And so it's leveraging systems, it's leveraging technology, and it's leveraging people to build the business. There are lots of ways to leverage, and if you're out there in real estate, you've got tons of people throwing ideas and products at you and everything else. There's a never ending avenue of ways to spend money and time on different products and services. But knowing where to go is really important, and understanding what makes sense, what to go do, and what to do first, and all that kind of stuff is really important. And it really boils down to beginning with the end in mind. You have to know where you're going, and not everyone's going to the same place. There isn't a one size fits all model. And so we're going to go through that whole entire component of figuring out your business and understanding that first. So don't get lost in this first session. We're definitely going to dig into some details and some stuff. We're going to get more into that in sessions 2 and 3. But in 1, we've got to build the foundation. And if you rush to build your house without building the foundation, it's not going to last. It's not going to be something that serves you for the long term for where you want to go. So we're going to talk about that on the front end. We're going to do some planning, and I need you guys to be super, super honest with yourselves on who you are, what you want to do, and what really, put your ego in your back pocket, right? It's not about looking a certain way or anything else like that. This is about building the life that you want and the business that funds that life. So forget about all of those things, but also put your fears in your back pocket, right? All of those limiting beliefs, you got to chuck those, write them down on a piece of paper, and then take it outside and burn it. We do that exercise with our group, and it's really important to make sure that you don't, get caught up into what's realistic. Figure out the life you want to live, and then let's build the business that will fund that life. So that's what we're going to do. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dave Canord. I have been in real estate business for over 20 years, 23 years, something like that. Started off in sales in my 20s, was fortunate to sell a lot of houses pretty quickly, and started getting into the brokerage side of things, and started launching brokerage franchises, and have been in that leadership role where I've been helping agents build their businesses for a while, and coaching top agents, and spent the last 5 years growing EXP as president of EXP. And we took that company from 10,000 agents to just shy of 90,000 agents. We went from not every state in the US and 2 provinces in Canada to now over 24 countries and growing. And it's been a lot of fun. So we're excited to be partnered with EXP in what we're building. Our organization, and I call our partner community here at EXP, is FYR, Fund Your Reason. So the FYR community is an awesome group of agents focused on funding their reason. What is their why, right? What's driving them? What's the most important thing to them? How do we build a business that provides the time leverage and the financial leverage and freedoms to be able to fund those and be able to do what you want to go do. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to dig into it today. So hopefully you guys are ready. there is a manual. So hopefully everyone has printed out their manual. We're going to go through the slides on here, but all the details are here, and I want you guys to be writing it in, right? Use your pens, your pencils, whatever. Write in the manual, go through and do the work. Take the time to do the work, and we'll have some fun. And let me know if there's anything that you need along the way. All right, so we're going to get right into it. So session one, we're going to be establishing our goals. We're going to be understanding behavior and motivations and motivators, and then we're going to be building your foundation to go build the rest of what you want to do to leverage yourself. And if you put on your headset of where you are, if you're a solo agent, new agent, or even a team member, you're thinking about how to expand what you do, how to get bigger results, better results, while still maintaining quality of life, right? How do you leverage it so you can make more money and have better impact, higher level of service to your clients without going crazy, right? And then if you are a top producing team, you want to be looking at your team and assessing it and saying, hey, is there an opportunity? Do I need a renovation to my team? Do I need to make some changes, or is it going well, but I want to go to the next level? What do we do here? And if you're somewhere in the middle, this will help put together some of the pieces, give you a good foundation to keep on growing. All right. So we've talked a little bit about this already. Again, put your fears and your ego in your back pocket. Get ready to do some work. We're going to have some fun in this class and the next two classes. So let's talk about teams, right? Because the concept is team. And, I've heard the saying, if you don't have an assistant, you are one, right? And that's really, if you may be wearing all the hats right now, and that's okay. You are the team. You are the team. If you have a team, right, we're going to look at what those roles are. But businessdictionary.com defines team as a group of people with a set of complementary skills that are required to complete a task, job, or project. Right. So it's important, the complementary skills, right? If everybody's good at the same thing, everyone has the same personality and the same skill set and background, you're going to be really good at one thing, but you're going to have a lot of weak spots. So the team members also operate with a high degree of interdependence, right? They rely on each other, but they're also bringing something to the table. They share authority and responsibility for self-management. So you want to look at that from a team structure. Is everyone relying on one person, or is everyone self-managed and bringing their own drive to the table? Team members are all accountable for the collective performance, right? And they work towards a common goal and shared rewards. A team becomes more than just a collection of people when a strong sense of mutual commitment creates synergy, thus generating performance greater than the sum of the performance of its individual members. So this is how businessdictionary.com defines team, and this is what we're looking to build. I think this is a really great definition, and this is a great target to be striving for. So I want you to be thinking about that as we're building forward. Now, I've done a lot of work with Dr. Abelson. Some of you may be familiar with Dr. Michael Abelson. He has the Abelson Group, and Dr. Abelson is a professor at the University of Texas. He is an authority in general on behavior, and especially in the real estate industry. NAR uses him. He has been an authority for them in teaching behaviors and motivators and that sort of thing. And he's worked with all of the major real estate companies out there, and teams, many of the large teams, in determining how do you build success, how do you get to success, how do you understand yourself so that you can build the best business, provide the best service, and then also how do you get the most out of your team members, whether you're in staff leadership or team leadership or anything like that. One of the things that he's noted is that there is an extreme cost to making bad hires. So, without embarrassing yourself, just think, if you've ever hired someone, if it didn't work out, was it them or was it you? Right. And unfortunately, most times it's us. Right. And it may be that they weren't a right fit for the position. It may be that they didn't do a great job, but we did hire them. So if we hired them, that means that at some point we felt that they were a fit, or maybe we didn't understand what we were hiring for. We hadn't defined it in our own minds well enough. So we hired for something without knowing. We set them up for failure. Maybe we didn't screen them well enough. We were desperate, and out of desperation, we grabbed the closest person and stuck them in a job, and they weren't the right fit for us or for our job or for our clients or for anything else. Maybe they weren't a hard worker. Maybe there's all those things where you said, oh, they were lazy, they didn't show up, they didn't whatever. But we have a responsibility to determine those things before making the hires for ourselves and for our clients and for them. But ultimately, there's a pretty big cost to making a bad hire. If you think about the time that it takes to identify the person that you're going to hire, and then the process of going through and interviewing and assessing and hiring and structuring, and then onboarding, training, accountability, ongoing management. Maybe you're even setting up accounts for them and doing other things that are cash out of your pocket in addition to all of the time that you spend. Maybe they damage your reputation in the marketplace. And so there are people that don't do business with you that would have done business with you as a result. And you don't know what that lost opportunity cost is, right? Maybe there's a deal that falls apart. Maybe they mess something up during the process and something falls apart, or someone leaves and stops doing business with you, et cetera. Maybe they scare away other team members and you lose the revenue source of those other team members. So there are lots of things that can happen through making a wrong hire and bringing in the wrong person, the wrong fit. And, best case scenario, it's just the fact that you have to go through and do it again. And worst case scenario is, that it actually costs you cash out of your pocket and that kind of thing. This is something where there's an exercise to go through, and there's actually a form in the index in the manual, in the student manual, to go through this. And you want to go through it, take the time, sit down and go through this, because you really want to look at this and uncover what could happen, because there's going to be a time when you go to make a hire or you go to expand it, and you may by hiring, you may even just be adding partners, right? You may be adding a mortgage partner, or maybe it's a landscaping partner. There's someone who you say, hey, you're going to be my referral partner for that portion of my business. And are you vetting them properly? Are you taking the time? And a lot of us don't like to take the time on the front end. And we move too quickly without taking it through the right steps and following all the right steps and procedures. And, in the end, what does that do? So doing something like this will put it out there in front of you to say, okay, I'm going to take the time because I don't want that to happen. And I think with that scary number hanging over your head, we're more likely to go do something with it. All right. So we're going to begin with the end in mind. Let's talk about some of your goal categories. Okay. Let me flip through on here. This is on page 8. So some of the goal categories that we're going to look at are your personal net income. Okay. So I want you guys to think about, what do you want to make? What do you want to make? How much income do you want to keep after paying expenses, salaries, company splits, team splits, and all your lead generation costs and everything else, right? Your cost to acquire, client acquisition costs and that sort of thing, operational costs. Okay. So typically, the team leader is going to be handling the lion's share of the expenses for the team. And that's why there's a team split. That's why team members split with the team leader. With that being the case, if you are a team member, then you need to understand that you're on a team for a reason. You're on a team for the leadership, the guidance, the support, the other tools, access to leads, access to other business, the brand recognition in the local marketplace, all of those things that a team leader brings to the table. And so you're going to have a team split. And so where do you need to be for your net? If you are the team leader, then you need to think about all of the things that you're going to bring to the table. And what is that cost to provide those things? Whether it's a time cost, hey, I'm not going to be able to close as many sales myself because I'm going to be spending time in management and in training and in support and everything else. Do I have an admin and transaction coordinator, et cetera, all of those things. Am I buying leads, or am I doing additional marketing and advertising and that sort of thing to provide business opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to be thinking about that and think about, what's your net? Where do you need to be? How much income do you want to make? All right. The next one to consider is your closed unit count. right? How many total closed units will your team need at your average sales price to generate your personal income goal, right? Based on the splits and your costs and all of those other kinds of things, how many houses do you need to sell to get there, right? You need to understand how big of a business you're looking to build, right? And then what's it going to take to get to that point? Okay. Next one is your preferred daily activities. So this one's really important because typically a team leader is a rainmaker, and you're responsible for strategy and generating leads and that sort of thing. And on some teams, the team lead is the salesperson, right? Some teams, it is fully an administrative team with one person working with all of the buyers and sellers. That's one of the team formats that you could create. So what is it that you like to do? I have some people that say, I don't want to build a team because I love working with clients. I don't need a buyer's agent. I like working with buyers. I know some people, think it's a waste of time, but I really enjoy it. It's one of the things that makes me really happy. And I also love working with sellers. Great. You don't have to leverage that point. But it's important some people hesitate on expanding their team because it's not that they don't want to give it up. It's, I'm afraid someone can't do a great job. They just, I want to do it. I want to be the one working directly with my clients. So that's great. If that's the case, you should know that, so that when you go to build your team, you build it the right way with the right people, all right? The right types of positions. You're going to build a heavily administrative in order to be able to have the time to work with all of those clients on both ends of the transaction, right? Then you need all of the other activities to be fully leveraged. Otherwise, you won't have time. Right? You want to have time to do it at a high level and give everyone the attention that is needed. Okay. And then you also want to keep in mind that the more leverage you have, typically the less net income you make off of each transaction. Now, done right, it should allow you to do more sales. So in the end, your net is larger, but you just have to understand that transactionally, you're typically going to keep less the more people you have involved every time something gets touched along the way, right, in the process. So you want to consider that in the type of team you build, where you want to go, and what you need for your net income. All right. The next goal category to consider is your desired level of management responsibility. Okay. And, the more people you have, right? I had a friend who had a team of 45 agents. I mean, I know there are some out there that are even larger than that. 45 agents on a team, you're running a small brokerage, right? You become their shrink, right? You're answering their questions. You're hearing about their concerns. You know what's happening in their family and their personal lives. You also are coaching them through their business, and they're all at different levels and places in their business. You are putting out fires. People get sick. They have family challenges, personal challenges, health challenges, anything like that require you to pivot and to jump in and that kind of stuff. There are going to be client concerns, legal concerns, and all of those other kinds of things that you need to do. And so you need to consider how much of that you want to be doing, how much of your time you want to spend on that, to determine also the size and type of team that you want to build. So all of those things are considerations, and there's more detail on page 9 now in the book. All right, the other one is cash on hand for business investment. And if some positions are going to be salary positions, some are going to be commission only. You've got 1099s, you've got a buyer's agent or something, and they're getting paid when they close deals. But some of the administrative positions and transactional positions and marketing positions and tech positions and that sort of thing, they might be hourly or salary. There may be other components to keep in mind. And so you need to think about, what kind of cash on hand do you have? What do you have to invest in your business if you're going to go start to build those types of positions on your team, right? What are they going to cost? And are you prepared to do that now, or when will you be prepared? Or how do you prepare between now and when you're going to make that hire? So those are definitely things that you want to consider and looking at and saying, hey, am I able to and willing to take on the debt of a salary, right? Or the requirement and the responsibility of those paychecks? Certainly it can have dividends, and returns and have excellent return on investment, right? It can be a really, really great leverage point and allow you to make a whole lot more money. but you do need to be prepared for it and you need to take it seriously. I don't want it to stop you from hiring those positions, but you need to consider the reality of where you are to make sure you're ready. And then the next one is about time. Okay, it's the time required to spend working in an average week or month, right? How much time freedom are you looking to create or not create? Some people say, hey, I love it. I work, 40, 60, 80, whatever plus hours a week, and I'm passionate about it, and I wouldn't do it any other way. I might not be able to do it forever, but some people say I want to do it until I physically can't do it anymore. And that's awesome. That's great. Some people are looking to free up as much time as possible and say, hey, I'd love to have an almost entirely leveraged business, right? Maybe I'm just doing management. Maybe I'm just doing some leadership or lead generation stuff, or very little involved, or 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, or just the freedom to be able to walk away for a little bit, go on a vacation and throw your phone off the side of the boat, and not have to be stuck to that phone the whole time while your family's waiting for you to go do, go snorkeling or whatever, right? So, what is that time freedom that you want? Because all of these things are going to help you determine what business structure and team structure you want to create. You want to create something that gives you the life. So envision that life, right? And then let's build the team structure that gets you what you're looking for. Okay. So hopefully you're going through that. Hopefully you're writing down what it is and you're creating that picture. We're going to continue to go through this, and then we're going to build out that structure. But I definitely encourage you to make sure you spend the time thinking about this, filling in the answers. Don't phone it in on this. Super important. This portion here, this front end portion is critical to make sure that you build from here, the right place. This is your foundation that will help you build something really solid that funds your life that you want, gives you all the different freedoms that you want, into the long term. All right, I'm going to skip the exercise for this since we're doing this over Zoom. And I'm going to start talking about behavior. So a lot of people, actually, you know what, before I do that, I'm going to change, if I can do this here. All right, you guys can now, I think, see each other. And I just want to see if anybody has any questions before we go. We've got a small audience that's here live, and then a bunch of people that are doing this over video. Does anybody that's here, with us today, do you guys have any questions about what we just went over as far as the foundation? Everybody's good. All right, cool. Shoot it in chat if you have something, and I will pause and make sure your questions get answered. All right. All right, let's start talking about behavior. So the DISC, a lot of people are familiar with the DISC as a behavioral assessment. This is one of my favorite tools. I've been studying the DISC for a really long time. And I've gone through the different certifications on it over time to really, really dig in and really understand, what it is, what are the nuances of our behavior, our own behavior, the behavior of others, and how to use that to have better relationships, stronger relationships, better communication, better understanding. And it's also, plays into better leadership, management, sales, client satisfaction, all of those things. So I'm going to take you through this fairly quickly on here. There's a lot of information. We do have a behavior mastery class in our FYR group that's going to be coming out this year as well. And I'm excited to teach that, where we're going to spend a while just digging in specifically on the DISC itself. So DISC, you can see right on here, there's D, I, S, and C going around the wheel. So D stands for dominance, I is influencer, S is steadiness, C is compliance. And then as you go through, everybody's got a mix, right? So when you go through and do the actual DISC assessment, and we'll be providing information to get links to do your own DISC and to provide the DISC for others. And if you haven't done it, it's fascinating, gives you a full report, talks about you and your strengths and weaknesses and areas to focus on. But everyone's got a little bit of everything, right? It's a lot of people think about it in terms of, you hear, but they say, oh, I'm a high D or I'm a high S. right? And so you think, okay, if I'm a high D, then I'm a, dominance, and I'm a, leader, and I'm, decisive, and I make things happen, and, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, all right, but the bottom line is, if I'm high in my D category, it's actually, you need to think of it as a scale where, you start from the center. You start from zero. Zero is in the middle, not at the bottom. Okay. And then you go either up or down from the middle. And so you go toward or away from the typical D characteristics. So if you're in the center, you're very neutral. And then, as you move up from center, you're increasing those. You can see on here, confrontational, you're a change agent, you're a risk taker, you're results oriented, you're driving, you're demanding. Those are those high level D characteristics. And so the higher you go away from the middle, the more those things exhibit themselves. Okay. But if you go down, right, and I'm going to show you some of the words on another example, another page, then you actually move towards different qualities and characteristics that are on the other side of those. Right. And so it's not whether you exhibit a lot of it or a little bit of it, it's what really drives your behavior, your natural decision making, and your natural tendencies, and how you come across to others, how you see the world. So it's pretty interesting to see the difference on all of those things. So when you take this, you're plotted on the chart where you are, and you can see that very few people are plop all the way up in one spot right in the middle. You're going to have a blend of all different things. So let me show you what the graph looks like. You have all of this information here on your paperwork to go through, and you can read all of these things. So here, this is a disc example, and this is definitely not mine. So this person here is a high C and also a high S, and I'm the reverse of that. This is more like my wife Kristen's graph, and but this, you can see, this is how you get charted on a graph. And so you have the D, I, S, and C going across, and there are two graphs on here. Okay, so the first one is your adapted style, and the second one is your natural style. And so your natural style, the one on the right, is actually who you really are, right? And so this is you under pressure and over time. It's very easy to for many people to adjust and adapt who they are and how they act and how they behave to a circumstance. And there is actually a correlation between intelligence and adaptability. And so there, if you have a high level of intelligence and EQ as well, right, that emotional intelligence, then you can adapt appropriately to the situation. Okay, but that may not be something that you're able to maintain over an extended period of time. Right? To act outside of how you naturally act is difficult to maintain for a long period of time, or you get super, super busy, you're slammed, you're stressed out, something crazy is happening in your life or anything else like that. And guess who's going to come out? The real you is going to come out. And so that's your natural style, that innate behavior of who you truly are. Now, all of us also, to some extent, some more than others, adapt our behavior to the situation as we feel is appropriate. And it may be a long term. You want to take this assessment in the mindset and headspace of your work. Okay. And so when you take the DISC assessment, you need to make sure you answer all the questions, placing yourself in the same environment of how you would answer that question in that environment. Otherwise, because you may be different socially, with your family or with friends and everything else than you are at work. Right. And so if you answer them with different environments in mind, it's going to come out all over the place. And it won't give you a true result. So think about it all in one place. So we're going to take work, in our sales business and, as the environment that we're talking about. So if your natural style, let's say for this person here, their natural style is to be very steady, right? S was that steady. If their natural style was to be very steady, but also to be very detail oriented, and to have a lower level of drive, and a lower level of social gregarious, but it's kind of in the middle, right? Now, whatever this person is doing, this person may be the administrative person on the team, right? This may be the team's admin, which is this is a DISC profile that would be likely matched for a transaction coordinator or an administrative professional. So if we go to the adapted style, you can see the way that they've adapted to the needs of their daily work is they've actually lowered their S a little bit. right? On a team, we know that their natural style was to want everything to be the same, right? No changes, no surprises, no anything else. How does that work in real estate, right? Lots of changes, lots of surprises. So they've needed to drop their S down, right? To have less of a focus on needing everything to stay the same and being a little bit more adaptable. But they've brought their C up because maybe they're focused on the details, right? Maybe they're keeping the books, maybe they're working a schedule and tracking all of those things, keeping the administrative stuff right, handling transactions and that kind of stuff. So they've ratcheted up their focus on the details a little bit more than they normally would. Okay. And then because they sort of need to be out of the front somewhat and be focused on all of those details, they've dropped that I down a little bit, right? I don't need to, be as social for this. I need to be focused on the work and the details. And they've even dropped their D down just a little bit as they're just managing the process. So that's just a guess. Again, this is just an example graph, but I want you to understand the correlation between a natural style and an adapted style. And I've had people that I've given the disc to, and they're typically your adapted style and natural style are very close, right? There really shouldn't be a massive difference. There are subtle differences between the two graphs. If there's a very drastic difference between the adapted style and the natural style, then it's very likely that you're in conflict, emotional conflict. And it just means you may be doing something that is so far out. It may be out of necessity, but you may be doing something that's so far away from your natural style that you're feeling discomfort, you're feeling a pull, and you may not realize that it's behavior related. So I had people apply for a task-oriented, very detail-oriented position, and maybe they were an accountant, or maybe they were already in a role, something like that. And we look at their disc. They have the ability to do the work and the intelligence to do the work, but their adapted style is a pretty close fit to what I'm looking for, but their natural style is radically different. And really, they're a gregarious social person who hates the details, right? The fact that you can do it, it's not an intelligence test, it's a behavior assessment. And so you may be able to do all the work and all the details. I can do it. You can give me your P&L and I can find you the missing penny. But you don't want to hire me as your accountant because I don't want to do that every day, right? Eventually, I'll be rounding you to the nearest $1,000 and we're going to call it a day. So you want someone who is when you hire for a position and when you consider your own role on the team, right, as a leader and how you're going to come across and what you need to leverage, you need to look at where your natural strengths are. What's your natural behavior? The closer you can design what you do every day and what everyone on your team does every day to their natural style and find those right fits, the more successful they're going to be, because you're going to be happy in your role, they're going to be happy in their role, and they're going to thrive in that role, as will you. So that's why this is so important to understand these things. So I'm just going to show you we'll go through a couple of words on here just so you can get an understanding of the D, I, S, and C. And you can see right in the middle, right? We've got dominance, influencing, steadiness, and compliance right across the middle. And then you have the up and the down. This one right here correlates to the example that we were just looking at, right? So you can see their D was their lowest. And so it shows them going down from the center, going more towards cautious. So if you go all the way up towards the top, they're ambitious, driving, demanding, right? All of those things, aggressive, competitive. But as you move away from that, then it starts to go more towards conservative, more towards low key, more towards undemanding and cautious. Right. And so this person, it's not that they don't have any drive. It's not that they can't get things done. It just means they're going to be more cautious. They're going to require a little bit more information and a little bit more understanding before they're ready to move forward. Right. It doesn't mean they'll never move forward. It doesn't mean they can't take action. It doesn't mean they can't come across as very driven in certain circumstances, but that's typically only going to happen after they have figured everything out and they feel very comfortable and confident in moving forward. And then they're able to move forward confidently. Okay. So it's important to know that about people. And just, you say, hey, I need you to go out and do this. I need you to make these calls and I need you to whatever. And, I want you to go attack this. If you understand this about their personality and the behavior, then you can not require that. You could say, hey, let's figure out what you need to know first. Then you can really go after it. So the same thing with the I, the S, and the C. You can see all of the different descriptive words that are on here, right? Again, with the I, it's a little bit more reflective rather than being, super inspiring, effusive, enthusiastic, demonstrative, all of those things, right? So it's moving a little bit more towards a little bit skeptical, a little bit more logical, right? So I'm not just going to be, go with my gut, go with my heart. I want to uncover the information. I'm going to reflect on it a little bit, and then I'll be comfortable. Steadiness, the same thing, right? Much more patient, passive, predictable, consistent, and that sort of thing. And as you move away towards that, in the other direction, it would be impulsive and impetuous. So you can think about the different roles where you would want someone to be, super go with your gut and be able to, move with change and quickly and everything else. And others where you want someone to really follow the process for you, and what roles those might be. And compliance is another. Systematic, neat, exacting, right? Accurate, tactful, right? And then you have people who, are obstinate, opinionated, arbitrary, unbending, and careless with details. Okay, so where do you want to be as far as your compliance is concerned? Okay, so again, think about moving up and down away from the center and what that might look like from a position standpoint. So let's look at roles on a real estate sales team and what these might be, right? So a couple of different key roles on a sales team would be a team leader, administrative assistant, transaction coordinator, listing agent, buyer agent, showing assistant, or ISA, right? The inside sales agent. So think real quick and then jot down on your paper what you think the preferred behavior would be. And you could give a single letter, right? Or you can do two of them, right? So you might say, this/this, like you need to be a DI for that, or an SC for this, or, an IS, etc. Okay, so take a second, and in each one of these, take a guess on what you think the preferred behavior is. All right, let's reveal what we've got. All right, so for team leader, typically a team leader is going to be a DI or a DC behavior. Okay, now D is leadership, right? Thank you. So D is leadership. D is a driver. Someone has to be willing to take the fall. Someone has to be willing to step out and to do something, whether it's right or wrong, but take action, right? I had a friend who would always say, let's do something even if it's wrong, right? And it was just a matter of like, let's move, let's take action, let's go somewhere. And so that is the driver. That is someone who will push the business forward, who will do the painful and uncomfortable things, even when they're painful and uncomfortable, because they are committed to the outcome. They're committed to getting where they want to go. Now, the I or the C paired with that D, right? You're either going to be a driver who is also the relationship person, right? And leads through that energy that they drive. Team leaders could also be an ID, right? Because you can bring that energy to the table, and that will make you someone that people want to follow. And the other option, of course, being that DC, where that drive, but also going to be focused on doing it the right way and holding that standard up, right? And then driving the team towards that. All right, so let's take a look at the others. Administrative assistant, typically SI or SC. S being super important. That's the steadiness. That is someone who follows processes and procedures all the time. If you have someone who's running the administration for your team and structuring things and keeping them moving, you need someone who is going to follow the processes, right? That lower D means that they are going to follow the processes designed by you. One of the things that I found to be a problem for teams as they're building is someone who says, "Hey, I'm not detail oriented. I'm a DI. I'm an ID. I don't like the details. I don't live in that world. I'm going to hire someone who's super detail oriented, and I'm going to get them to create my systems for me." Well, when you hire that person who's really good with the details, they're not willing to take the risk. They don't want to take the risk typically, right? The typical behavior of the SCSI, right, is more about give me the processes, set the expectations, and I will go do an amazing job and make sure it always happens. I will perform at a super high level when you tell me what you want and how you want it done. Okay, and so it typically does not work And there's a whole lot of getting ready to get ready and checking in, like, well, what about this? I'm not even sure where to start because I don't want to give you something that's not what you want, et cetera. And I've seen that play out over and over and over again. So it's really important that if you're going to lead and be the leader, that you're bringing those things. And if you are in that position where someone is saying, hey, you go figure it out, I encourage you to have that conversation with your team leader and say, hey, let's make sure that I've got clarity on exactly what you want. I need you to do this for me. And then, and then I can go do this for you. All right. Transaction coordinator. What's your guess on that? Right. Thinking details, right? CS or SC, right? It's details. It's details, structure, processes all day long. Certainly dotting all of the I's and crossing all of the T's, making sure that the processes are being followed, that all the information is there, all of the forms are done, all of the schedules and timelines are met, and nothing is forgotten and everything is communicated. Super important. Listing agent. Now, listing agent is typical to, is similar to, team leader and often the same person, but that DI or ID behavioral style, you need to be able to close. You need to be able to, you have the right scripts. You need to be able to help get the listing and guide and lead the sellers through the pricing process and choosing to do business with you and uncovering their needs. That I that's in there is that interpersonal influential portion where you're developing the relationship, and then you're bringing them to the point where you show them that you can be the best person to serve their needs. So typical DIID. Buyer's agent, the most prevalent profile in the real estate industry is an ISSI behavioral style. Most agents, and actually most people out there, are ISSI behavioral style. And so this is the relational, right? Because you're working with people, you need to be able to connect with them. You're spending the time with them. You're listening. They're going to be all over the place a little bit as far as determining what they want and what they need, and having that real desire to help them. The D just wants the outcome. Are you going to write a contract or not? Right. But the I says, ooh, why do you like this? What do you like about this? Isn't this great? You told me you needed this. Doesn't that fit that perfectly? Can you imagine your couch over here and your kids playing in the yard? That's the thing where they're building that relationships and going through that process. There is a process to follow with the S, and it takes more time. And so there's a patience factor that comes in with the S because they're following the process. And then that I for that interpersonal. Showing assistant. ISSI, right? Very similar. We're doing the same, the showing assistant is typically not writing the contract, but they are still doing the showings and going through that entire process. So the same behavioral style is needed. And then the the ISA is typically an ID or DI. And interesting, right? Comes across a little bit like the team leader characteristic. So now you're getting into, there's behavior and there's personality, and they're not the same thing. Right. And so there's also skill set and that sort of thing. So this is someone who is making phone calls. They need to be able to connect when they make the phone calls, but they need to have ego resiliency that typically comes with the high D. And they also need to have that drive to get and bang out the phone calls, make the connections, follow the process, and drive through to get the result. They have to be very results focused, but they also have to be able to connect and have that emotional intelligence that is more often associated with a high I, to be able to connect on the call, to understand where the other person is coming from, and then direct the conversation where it needs to go. But also not just call and chat with people, but actually be results focused, going towards direction. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And all of this is in the chart in your paperwork. Okay. So final note on this is just remember that, behavior doesn't determine intelligence, motivation, experience, ethics, or skills. This is purely what is natural to you for your behavior. Okay. You are typically going to be geared towards, some of those words that we showed on that other chart or others, right? And so you're going to tend to be like that in the way that you act. Right. All of those there's nature versus nurture and everything else. There's all of those other things that come into play for the overall big picture. So this is only a portion of the hiring process. You find someone with the right behavior, it doesn't mean they're going to be able to do the job. Like, oh, wow, they nailed it. They're exactly what I look for. I'm hiring a buyer's agent. They're an IS behavioral style. They're going to rock it. Well, it's not necessarily true. they certainly have a higher chance of succeeding if they have the right natural behavior. But now we need to look at some of the other components that might go along with that. So one of the other things that we look at are the motives. I'm going to spend a little less time on this because it's more complex, and so this is going to be dug into in a larger class where we go into more detail specifically on behavior and motives, and really dig down into how to utilize these for the sales process, communicating with clients, even in marketing, and then in leadership for the motives, and also in working with clients and helping them get there. But as you can see on here, there are 6 different motives that are the key motives that are out there, and you have your descriptive words that are used for each one of those. And just like everything else, you're going to fall somewhere in different levels on each one of these. Everybody has some of these in their behavior. And so, here is a graph that shows you norms and comparisons, and this is over the general population in the United States. And so you can see, forget the star right now, this is just the example score, okay? But the blue-gray bar that's in there right now, that shows the general population and where most people fall. Okay, now you can see most people in the middle because it's everyone. And so inside of everyone are always people on the extremes, but in general, it falls in these areas on the graph. And then you can have the national mean as that black bar on each one of these. Okay, so when you take this assessment for yourself, you'll see where you fall in comparison. So if you look at the top line, right, this person is more towards theoretical than, they're less towards theoretical than the general population. That's less important to them than most people out there. They tend to fall. And then if you go down to the 5th one down, individualistic, they're much higher, right, than the general population in that motivation. Okay, so we'll talk about the different motivators real briefly, but this is how it graphs out. So it shows you kind of how you compare to the rest of the country when it comes to these different motives, because that will show how strongly that shows up in your behavior. So here's a graph, again, similar to the disc. It has the 6 components on there. And then it shows, again, you've got the line for the national mean. And then you can show on this particular, again, this is just an example graph, but that utilitarian and individualistic are the 2 highest for this particular person, right? So if you go into utilitarian and you go back to this chart right here, right? That's in all of your notes and everything else. Utilitarian, efficient use of time, resources, and energy, money for security, practical and useful. So this person, again, is really focused on things being efficient, having money for security, right? There's not about things. It's not about buying the Lamborghini. It's about having their bank account there so that they, in case, anything should happen, it's having the money for the rainy day kind of a thing. And then much more driven towards things that are intellectually oriented. And they're also individualistic, which control of self and others, political, takes responsibility, recognition, sets rules, personal power, right? So rules and setting. So this behavior, again, matches with the other. This was the SC, CS behavioral style that we saw on the disc. And this is going to be typical for someone who is focused on details and focused on processes and systems. And they tend to be a little bit more reserved, right? And so this plays out and ties into what their motives are as well. But when you're hiring someone, a lot of times we look at their financial motivation, right? How much money do they need? Are they financially motivated? But often it's not the money. They may have certain, baseline needs, but in the end, are they doing something that meets their really what, sets their soul on fire, right? What are their true motivators? Some people want to roll with a ton of autonomy, right? And they're in a position where they're told what to do and everything else like that. If you can give them somewhere where they can come in and be super creative and they love that sort of thing, then they'll be so happy and satisfied in their role that they're less concerned about the dollars, right? And so really meeting all of the needs. You have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But really understanding these motivators is super key in creating an environment where the person thrives and doesn't want to leave, which is really important. So you have in your book a whole bunch of details right, about each one of these motivators. So it goes over each one. It defines what it is and what that person is looking for. Okay. And then the question that I ask for each one of these is, how would you appeal to this motivation when making an offer? Okay. So I encourage you, for every hire that you make, to take them through the DISC and motivators assessment. And when you uncover this, one's going to be a behavioral match, but the other is going to understand, how do you create a good environment for them, and how do you create the right offer that captures the talent that you want? It's not always paying more, right? It's about finding the right fit and offering them something that they can't say no to, because it really just speaks to them and gives them an opportunity where they will thrive and they will do more. And if they do more and succeed at a higher level, it allows you the opportunity to pay them more when appropriate. So that's the question for each one of these. So go through these and understand, if you have someone, this is aside, the motivators, you may have some motivators that are more important than others in the position that you're hiring for. But in the end, really what you're looking for is fit, and you're looking to create an environment where they thrive. So when this comes back on that assessment, you want to say, okay, great. Knowing that, now I'm going to craft an offer for this person if they end up being the right fit in all of the other areas. How do I do that in a way that speaks to them? All right, so we're going to talk about the 5 Ps. There's a whole bunch more in here about behavior, and so I encourage you guys to make sure that you go through and you read that, and again, jump into the other longer class that we've got that's specific to behavior. In the interest of time, we're going to keep just cranking on this. All right, so I'm going to take you through the 5 Ps, and we're going to go through this. We're going to go through this pretty quickly, but this is super important. As far as creating the culture of your team. What most people don't, they just kind of do things and they expect that it's going to happen without being necessarily purposeful about it. All right. If you look at the culture of your organization, your team, your group, your relationships, and it's not what you want, chances are you weren't purposeful about creating what you wanted in doing it. What specific actions are you taking? Every team, every relationship has a culture to it, right? Whether it's by design or by accident, right? It's got one. And so, being purposeful about it from the beginning, you can set the structure, you can decide what it is, and then make sure people are a fit to the culture you want. Because if you bring in someone out of culture, you're going to feel that friction right away. So the 5 Ps to building great culture are principles, picture, purpose, process, and people. Okay, so we're going to go through those. So principles are who you are, right? Your team principles are the core values that define how each team member will treat each other, right? How they'll treat your clients, how they'll treat anyone that they come in contact with. So this is something where, you do need to determine this, and you need to share it often and clearly, with your team. You need to determine it ahead of time and then make sure that they're fit. And as you're going through the hiring process, you're holding people up there. You're understanding who they are and what they're like through the conversations that you'll have in the hiring process, and determine ahead of time if they're a fit, right? Because you can't hire someone and then say, these are our team principles. You need to adjust your principles to match our team principles. It's not going to happen, right? So you need to determine ahead of time, what are their principles? What are their, who are they? What are their core values? And is it a fit before you make the hire? Trying to shoehorn them in is usually a recipe for disaster, not something you want to do. Your picture is what you're building. Okay. And this is what draws people to you. If you've ever been on a team or part of a business or anything else like that, where you've had factions inside of there, right? And it's like, who's going to follow this person? Who's going to follow that person? I mean, I think back to like Lord of the Flies or something, right? Who's going to follow the two people? There's lots of movies and books on, all of those different things where people have a different vision, and then people have to choose who they're going to get behind. There's always conflict when everyone's not on the same page. If you're the leader, then you are creating that vision, right? Your picture is your vision of where you're all going. So to help avoid any future conflict and to help you guys move as fast as possible, increase that speed towards the team goals, it's really important to make sure that everyone's rowing in the same direction, right? So, one of your primary responsibilities is to paint that clear picture of where you're going and why you're going there, right? That's the picture should be specific. It should be inspirational, right? And concise so that everyone can learn it and they can memorize it. They can share it with others. So it should be something that everyone talks about on your team. They all know where you're going and you're tracking your attainment of that vision of building that picture. And then here we go, right? So on here it says, I'm building an empire. Who wants to join me? Let me define that empire for you. If I define this for you and you start salivating, your eyes light up and you're all excited, then you're one of my people. Let's go build this together. Okay. Once you've determined what you're building and what it is and where you're going, it's also really important to share why. Why is it? That's your purpose. That is your purpose. Okay. Why are we building this? Like, yeah, that's really cool, but why is it important? Okay. Why do you do what you do? So, some again refer to it maybe as a mission statement to define how they hope to make an impact in the world around them, right? Whether it's your community or a bigger picture or, individuals or that sort of thing. So defining your purpose helps you identify the other people who share your passion for serving the people in your market. Right? You put it out there in your purpose and other people, again, they see that mission, they see your picture, they get clarity on the picture and that purpose. If they're on the same path that you're on, you guys will instantly be so much stronger working together, right? When they understand that. So when you guys become united around a common purpose, everyone's way more likely to work well together and then provide great service to your clients. Okay. The next P is process. How are you going to do it? How will you build it? So once you're aligned on your purpose and striving towards a picture that you provided, every member of the team has to be clear in their role on how they move the team forward. Everyone has to feel important on the team. It can't be like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm the leader. And, so you guys just do your jobs. They have to see and understand that what they're doing is very important. Then how it plays into, hey, you know what? This is like baking a cake. If I take one ingredient out of the recipe, it doesn't work. It doesn't taste right. It doesn't rise. It doesn't whatever, the whole thing doesn't work. Every single person and their role in how we're doing this in this process gets us to the outcome that we want. And that's really important. So when you have clear processes, right, everyone understands what they're supposed to do and what their role is in the process. If you have clear processes and expected results, and then accountability to the team, everyone's accountable to the team, right? Every ingredient is accountable to the other ingredients for the ultimate result, right? Then that allows all the people on your team to be super talented and to have the freedom and autonomy to go succeed in their role. They know what they're supposed to do. They're accountable to each other. Then they go do it. It shouldn't be kick the ball and drag Charlie, right? Everyone should be driving each other and holding each other accountable towards excellence, right? So when you have clarity of the process, you reduce stress for everyone on your team, including yourself, and you get to run as fast as possible because everyone knows what to do. If you've ever been on a team like that, whether you play sports or in the orchestra or something like that, right? When everyone knows what they're supposed to do and they're all doing it right, and you have the right people on the team, the result's beautiful. It's really great, and you win. All right, and the last one is people, right? Who is going to help you? Who is going to help you do it? So we're going to be talking about the hiring process, but the people, of course, is the most critical step. Finding the right people, the one who share the right qualities, the principles, the purpose that are important to you, right? You're the leader. You're driving this. You're creating this. You get to decide what those things are. That's the cool thing. If you're in the leadership role and you're building this, whether it's your team and a whole bunch of people on your salespeople on your team, or it's the other partners, like I mentioned, your mortgage partners and everybody else. Hey, when I'm going to refer you to someone, they're going to do business like I do business, and we're going to have those conversations in advance. And we're either going to be, on that have that same purpose and have that same picture and the same principles and everything else, or I'm not going to work with them. I'm going to find that right partner who does that. Have you had those kinds of conversations with the people that you're going to be referring people to? Those other business people, whether they're specifically on your sales team or not, right? So it's super important. So great leaders will understand the importance of selecting carefully and then investing in the lives and successes of your people. It's really important that you have a responsibility to help people thrive. So hire well on the front end by making a great match by being very clear about where you're going and that purpose behind it, right? Giving them clear processes to follow, and then creating that accountability and that feedback loop, right? Because one bad hire can really wreak havoc on your business, right? It can destroy your team. So we're going to go through all of these things. We're going to talk more about the hire process and what that looks like. There are some exercises for you guys to go through in the manual on each one of these, to spend some time really thinking about it and digging into each one of the 5 Ps, because that is something where you really want to have that foundation extremely strong. So hopefully this foundational portion is helpful to you guys. We're going to be digging in the next session, right, as we dig into leverage part 2, right? And we're going to cover a couple of fun graphs where we're going to really dig into what are the team structures? How do you build the right team? Where do you start? What are the types of teams that you could possibly build? And what's the outcome that you want? And I'm going to show you how to maximize your financial freedom and your time freedom. And I'm going to show you the most painful place to get stuck, so you don't find yourself getting stuck there. So that's what we're going to cover in session 2. We're going to go through a whole lot of detail on that and getting into that whole process, and then preparing to actually make the hire and building everything out. We've got position descriptions in detail with DISC assessments, but DISC behavioral outcomes that you're looking for, and how to prep yourself for the hiring process, and how to make sure that you're going to identify the correct person, and how to do it really quickly so you don't have to go through a million different things. Get the right people in front of you, make the right decisions, and then we're going to dig into how to drive accountability and training and everything else so that your team gets up and running and is operating at the highest possible level, as smoothly as possible, as quickly as possible. All right, guys, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. We're at the top of the hour. Look forward to it. If you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up in Workplace. I am happy to dig into more detail, answer specific questions for you, and to help you any way I can. Appreciate you guys being here.